All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. Back to talk more Walking Dead Season 11. The final season continues. We are already 5 episodes deep. And today we're talking about Out of the Ashes. So, spoilers if you have not seen this. Also, if you're liking what we're doing on the channel, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. To all of you who are returning, welcome back. If you're new, welcome to the conversation. And yeah, so I remember in the books when we got to the Commonwealth, it kind of felt like, in retrospect, yeah, this feels like this is it for the book. Like if this was going to end, this is where it was, a proper kind of place to get there. Because, I mean, just like the series, the TV show, it's like we've been there, we've done everything, right? And with all the spin-offs taking place in different areas of the country, it's not like we can't say that we haven't seen a whole lot, especially with Fear the Walking Dead just being batshit crazy and zombie tornadoes and atomic bombs and everything else. Like, you run the gamut of plot lines. And so when we talk about this season, there's, because I love the comment section for this season so far, because you get all the different varying opinions on this. People just saying I'm done with this. This is the worst season. And, your opinions on this are valid, because just like you guys, I've gone through like the ups and downs and thinking about all of this. But the fact of the matter is, it is what it is. The show has always been a slow burn. Even for like 16 episodes or split seasons, where they'll take the break in the winter. They've always like dragged out plot lines, because just about every show does that. If you've got a show that has like, say, just 10 episodes, right? Or like, like Breaking Bad, they had a structured season worked out, and so there was like very little fat to trim. But this is a corporate entity. This show is a money-making machine, and in order to keep that money going, they have to, they take their time purposely with stories to keep, you watching. And it can get a little maddening. And here's one of those episodes that's like that. Now, it's not to say that there aren't plenty of things happening in it. There's a lot of little bits pushing just a little bit further. And then there are the typical things that, are maddening to watch, like the Negan Maggie thing, where it's like, all right, well, you just have it out already, because it needs to happen. And we're going to do this differently. I've mapped out like the different storylines. So let's just get started with the one that I find the least interesting, which is the Negan Maggie one. Now, if they had actually gotten to something in this from last episode, I'd say that this was, a good, like a really good part of the episode. And I mean, it's not because, Jeffrey and Lauren are bad in it. It's just that it's what we've seen so far, except on their own, right? And they're just, we know Maggie will never trust Negan. And Negan is kind of, they've had his character kind of regress in this situation. Always being the guy, the naysayer, this won't happen, and then the opposite happens. He's proven wrong because he's Negan and he needs to be proven wrong. And that's basically all that happens. They argue in the woods. She throws a knife and protects him. He asks her why she hasn't put him down. She says, I ask myself that every day. There's an answer to that question, and if they would just let her answer it, you know, but they can't. They can't let this happen yet. There needs to be some catalyst. And I don't mean I think this. This is how they do it. There will be some kind of inciting incident that'll finally come to a head. Everything has to come to a boil and then past it for something to happen. Now, I was thinking about this, in real life, and how sometimes if you ever walk past somebody that you have an issue with and you should work it out in some fashion, whether you have it out or you apologize or whatever. So it is a realistic thing that people just avoid confrontation. This is definitely an extreme one, but I don't know if I would have been able to go anywhere with him without having it out. Like, just cards on the table. But the show won't let that happen yet. Why? Because, again, like I said, they need to fill the spots. It's another thing. Like, you ever sat at work and not knowing how, like, trying to figure out how to fill time? And you just do shit that's like, oh God, this should maybe take a half hour off the clock, and it takes like 5 minutes. So that's where we're stuck at. We're just going in circles. They get to the stash house. It's more of, how long do we wait? I don't think we should wait, at all. I think we should leave right away. And it's like they give him just enough of a point, all right? Which is, they've got people at Alexandria waiting for this food. It's not much, but hey, you've got Herschel too to think about. And her response is, I know, my people are out there though. And that's her point. They both have valid points. But it's just them butting heads, and then right as things are about to happen, she pushes him, he pushes her, they look at each other, and then Gabriel comes in and stops what needed to happen. They purposely stop the moment. How often does this happen? It's like when people are about to kiss and somebody goes, hey everybody, how you doing? And then walks into the room and they all go, oh, I wasn't going to kiss her. We weren't going to do anything. And it was good to see Gabriel. It means he's alive. Yay! So you can be happy for that. But also the trope is just very clear and evident. And Gabriel gets there, and so, as he says, well, then we wait. Which is all we do on this show for a good... Not all we do, but that's what we do. We wait. And then we speculate. Where's Daryl? What's going to happen? Because then if you've seen the trailer for next week, we know that he's still with them, the Leah's group, the Reapers. So the next bit is the second most interesting thing. And this was a close tie because, what happens with Alexandria here is kind of interesting as it goes along. Because we have Aaron here having a pretty bad nightmare of all the different threats that he's seen since he came on to the show. You got Whisperers, you got Negan's group, you got the Wolves, you got like all sorts of people. And his fear of protecting his daughter and then getting just stabbed up. And, part of me was almost like, man, this nightmare is better than what's happening on the show. Can you imagine if, like, all the groups teamed up? It's like a comic book. They're like the Sinister Six coming after Spider-Man. But one of the reasons this is also happening, because Robert Patrick's image is flashed right before the end of the dream, is because of that moment, that episode with that actor, with the moment with Gabriel and him and that guy, where they take him out. And that, I had said back then when I reviewed the episode, that episode was important because, not because it moves the story along, but because it changes your characters. that episode got into Gabriel's head. That episode got into Aaron's head. What they experienced in that episode changed them forever. And we're starting to see more and more of what that consequences of that are. What they found in that place, what that guy had done to his own flesh and blood and kept them captive. And so Aaron's on a hair trigger, and not to mention the fact that, Alexandria is falling. There's a breach. People die before they can get the wall back up. Part of me was wondering, they keep putting up crappy walls. Why don't they start going and just taking apart the houses that are around them? Like literally taking the bricks and the side, like just leveling places and taking them apart and using them for fun. But I don't know. So then you have the other thing that's going on in Alexandria, which is Judith, who's trying to train these other little kids, these scared kids. And they all look scared. Like, they're not even facing a walker, and they all look, like, terrified. So, And she runs into some a-hole kids. We're introduced. We all are. She sees them, She obviously knows them. And I just keep wondering, where do they keep finding these asshole kids that always show up in these seasons? Like, it just eventually happens. I mean, like with Lydia and those kids who were at Hilltop. And really what this show has been really good at, and consistent, you can say this with consistency, is the accuracy of showing how big a little assholes kids are. And like early teenagers, because like I'm sure that some of you out there were great kids for the most part. We all like to think of ourselves as, well, I was a good kid, right? But if you really get past a lot of it, you'll find some memories that you wish you didn't have. I do. Everybody, I think, had their moments of being an asshole kid, and these kids are no different. And they're basically risking their lives to tease a walker, and all it's doing is making them come to the wall more. They don't realize the danger they're being put in. Very much a kid thing. They just don't realize about consequences. And they always manage to get kids that are just convincingly douchey. And they give us one here. This poor guy, man, I hope he's private, so like homeschooled, because when kids see him in this, they're gonna torture him. And I shouldn't laugh, but again, because the cycle, that's what kids do. I think about like what Jake Lloyd, the kid who played Anakin, went through. That kid went through hell. I'm sure that the guy who played what's that, Jack Gleason, who played Joffrey on Game of Thrones, boy, I would not want to be, have his school experience. I mean, again, he probably went to a private school or something. I don't know. So she threatens this kid because he threatens her. He's threatening the whole community by what they're doing. He says, oh, your mom abandoned you. Another typical thing for a horrible thing that kids say. People, when you're narcissistic like a kid is, and you just know how to cut to the heart of things. It's another thing kids are good at, is hitting you where you live and not caring about the consequences. So this hits Judith hard. Later, when somebody breaks the fingerprints, the handprints that they had up there, it just compounds her irritation and her sadness as Rosita tries to talk to her about everybody's gone, and does it get any easier? And the little actress who plays Judith is doing a really good job. And I can't, when I say Judith, and I go, God, I have to remember that this is the baby Lori was carrying. This is the baby at the prison. This is the baby they've been dragging around forever. And now she's like a little kid. Now, they talk any more about what happens oh, no, we got more at Alexandria. Because they go to Hilltop to see if they can get any supplies for the wall, for food. I mean, in my head, I go, well, that's probably pointless, but hey, and wow, do they get there fast. Anybody else notice that? Usually a trip to Alexandria is like a episode to episode thing. Like, well, we'll see them next episode if you're going to Hilltop. But not this time. They've got Game of Thrones rules going on. And they get there, and all their friends that were there are now zombies, so they got to take them out. And then they find, just so happens that Lydia's with them and notices that the walkers that are there are walking kind of funny, that they're being herded. And in the midst of these zombies, there is a whisperer, which is kind of a cool wrinkle. I like this, that just because they took out Alpha and Beta wouldn't mean that there weren't still some people out there. It makes complete sense. And then they find out that he's hiding more. And then Aaron snaps because the guy tries to stab him. And so Aaron decides to torture the guy for more information on how many of them are there. Now, I also understand, like, what that whisperer did, right? He's trying to hide his own people that are left. They don't know how, they have no leadership. They have nowhere to go. It's like the end of a war. And, you got people that just don't know what to do with themselves anymore. Are you still fighting? Are you still combatants? It's like they did terrible things. How do you hold them accountable? Do you just kill them outright? Do you tell them to just leave? You can't live with these people. So the dramatic section of this and the consequences and are real, and I like this bit of how do you deal with these people that are left. But they've done this before too. It's, again, everything's been done. They dealt with the leftovers of Negan's group. How slowly but surely most of them are probably gone too. So I understand that they defend themselves. They don't know what to do. They fear for their lives. Anybody's going to fight for their life no matter what side they're on. They're not going to just lay down and die. So he tries to attack Aaron because they fear for their lives, and they should. I'm not saying that, I wanted to see Aaron get killed or anybody of our group get killed, but again, I talk about perspective. Everything's perspective in this. If our group was different, if we followed our group around until they became, like, let's say the group like the governor, the original governor, how would we feel? But unfortunately, our group are the White Knights, even though they've done some pretty terrible things along the way, if you think about it. Well, Aaron allows the guy that they catch and that tried to stab him to get bit. And this is where you start to see that dark side of, like, Aaron coming out, of just the desperation and the fear of losing everything. He's lost Hilltop. Alexandria's falling apart. Everything, that Aaron, Aaron is done. Think about, he used to be the guy to go out and get people for communities, and now he's just had it. He's got he's got the arm replacement like Rick had, and he's just done. And he lets the guy get bit. And this is when everybody has to pull him back. Carol has to pull him back. Carol has to remind him that what she did took her down this really dark path, and it's not going to help anything. And, it's maybe a little bit hypocritical, but she's trying to say to him, you don't want this, I don't know if it's hypocritical or not. It's probably not hypocritical. I feel like there's some hypocrisy going on in this season, mostly with, between Negan and Maggie. So maybe I'm reaching for seeing hypocrisy where there isn't any. But she's able to kind of pull him back where he doesn't kill the guy. He gives him the knife and says, you can cut your hand off or kill yourself. And to talk about Alexandria anymore would be spoilers that connect with our last bit. So let's talk about our last bit, which is the best bit of this, which is the Commonwealth storyline with Eugene, Ezekiel, Princess, and Yumiko. And here's the thing. I didn't like the Commonwealth arc. The last arc of the Walking Dead comic book, as much as I enjoy the book, if I'm going to be honest, is my least favorite arc of that book. And especially hard because it's the last arc in that book. There is a final issue which ties everything together, but that's more like The Walking Dead epilogue. But here, because it's actually something that takes an idea like the original Governor Community. For some reason, I can't remember the name of it. Now, theirs was run by a lunatic. And I really wish at this point we could have just gotten the comic book version of the governor, because at least then it would have been fucking insane. And there was some insane stuff that they got right. Like the heads in jars and the kid, his daughter being kept in the closet and stuff. But David Morrissey was just too... He was a very real governor. And now, looking back, I just really wish that they had just gone over the top with it. I did at the time, too, but then I rationalized and went... Well, in the real world. But the thing is this isn't the real world. And I think that maybe, though, they were trying to keep it still grounded. And I think there was still a way to make the governor, the wild hair, and everything else. There were some things that they were never going to be able to do. If you want to see some of the most insane comic book shit you've ever read the actual governor's story, that arc. That has some dark, dark, dark stuff. And they would never be able to play that unless it was on HBO. Then maybe. But I'm getting off topic. But I'm trying to draw a comparison. That place was run by a lunatic who was having them fight. But it was like this fake, on the surface, it looked all good. And it looked like what the Commonwealth could be. Like it could have been like the Commonwealth in a way. This is like that Community 2.0, where everything seems to have started. They got this place up early. They got rules early. They had they had a structured bureaucracy, which is really fucking maddening in this episode because it's very close to real life. How slow things go. But because it's something kind of new, it makes it the most interesting. And it also makes it more interesting because of the group. Ezekiel in the comics is dead, so he never gets to the Commonwealth. Princess is a more successful character in the show, to me. A better representation of that character in the show than in the comic. Eugene is also, I think, better here in the series than mostly in the books. I think Eugene and him were kind of on the same level for a while, and now I think the actor for the show has taken it to another better level, more interesting level. And since Yumiko is taking the Michonne role, it's also different because it's a completely different character, having kind of the same experience, but again, different. So they take what we know, and this is how you subvert expectations successfully. Because the Commonwealth was boring. But you get these people, this weird, kooky group of people together, and you get an interesting arc. And it is more fun to watch this, because you really I even don't know what they're going to do with all this. And again, just like every other arc on this show, it's just being done slowly. We're 5 episodes deep and we haven't seen Pamela Milton yet. Will we see her next week? I doubt it. So I'm predicting we won't see Pamela Milton until episode 7. Which I think might be the break between when they because they cut this season up. But they get the Commonwealth orientation video, which I think a lot of people probably started with. I mean, I'm 23 minutes in, probably more than that with intros and stuff. And I'm finally talking about the orientation video, which I thought was great. It's so cheesy and so like 1980s, 1990s star wipes and shit. And, like a job orientation. Come work for Subway. This is what you can expect. And all it was just gloriously well done and great. Only we get to meet Lance Hornsby, director of operations, who shows up later in the episode. We know Pamela Milton is the governor. But this is where they're like, look, they get their job assignments, they get their bungalow assignments, but Eugene correctly says, look, we're not here to work. We're here to get help for our people. And so they need to go start to find answers. Now, unfortunately, this comes with bureaucracy. They find out that it's going to take like 5 weeks before they can talk to a case supervisor. And I think that it's kind of frustrating because we really haven't seen the scope of the Commonwealth yet. Because to me, what they've shown us makes this place not really look that big. But in the book, there's like 50,000 people. This looks like a set, like a studio lot with just a few random people walking around. And that fucking Six Flags music playing in the background was a bridge too far for me. That's just weird, and it made it creepy, and it made it feel fake. And I don't mean like fake like they're trying too hard to make this place look real on the show. I mean, it makes me feel like this place is fake. That music, that piped in music, and the politeness, I feel like is just, maybe I'm reading too much into it. It feels unnatural. But maybe that's me being cynical. But as soon as I drop that cynicism and the show will slap me in the face with reality, then I'll go, I was right to think that there was something wrong. And that's messed up. That's messed up that we are trained to think like we see something good and we go, there's got to be something wrong here. That's the level we're at in this world. Is good means bad. Well, they end up, Yumiko catches up with this guy named Tommy that she knew in her past life. Is that her brother? There's a couple of details here that I feel like I've forgotten. And he's like a secret surgeon. He's working in a bakery, but he's a doctor. I wonder if that's like something he just didn't tell them. It feels like if he was a surgeon and they knew it, he wouldn't be working in no bakery. I think he left that detail out so he could find happiness. Meanwhile, our group sneaks into the communications office to cut the red tape and get word back to Alexandria that they're okay. Problem is, and of course this didn't work, because they got Princess outside and Ezekiel outside running interference, making sure that nobody disturbs Eugene and Stephanie from making their call. Problem is, this is written in the most obvious fashion. Princess is being like, oh, oh, oh. And I love her performance, but it is obvious distraction. Mercer sees right through this obvious distraction. Get Ezekiel to do the talking. But no, we needed them to get caught so that you can get to meeting Pamela Milton. So this is how we get there. He reaches, Eugene reaches Rosita. The communications get garbled. And then they're caught and arrested. Mercer catches them. They end up in front of a lawyer who, again, like when you listen to how these people talk, this is this is like a combination of Alexandria and the governor's community. These people have forgotten what's outside the walls. And for them, it's good. It means that it's been working. They've been doing this since I said, it sounds like they got this place started really early. So good for them. How they, to be able to keep this place going and the walls up, and whatever's working is working. So I can't fault them for that. It doesn't seem like too oppressive, but they're trying to make the world again, and I don't know if you can do that or should do that. But again, it's not really for me to say. This is a fictional world, and if I try to make too many real world connections, then I'm going to get bogged down in all sorts of crap. But they get word to the director of operations, this Lance Hornsby, who shows up with Stephanie and says, let them go, keep them here, which leads me to believe that he's like the emissary for Pamela Milton to come in and say, and then we get that introduction, and maybe we'll meet this show's Joffrey in that same episode, because that kid's a fucking piece of shit. So, anyway, I can't believe I've talked this long about this episode, and again, a lot of people would probably consider this episode a filler episode. I don't like using that term as much as anybody else who doesn't like us to say that. I know writers don't like us to say that, but this isn't filler. This is just slow moving. So anyway, if you liked this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. If you hated every single thing I said and wished that you had never watched this, and for some reason, like a masochist, you just like to hate watch something, well, we can give you a better memory, which is what we're going to do right now. So we're going to make a little adjustments here. For those of you who did like it, please look away. Put on your shades. If you have a sensitivity to light, hit the floor, because we're going to give these people who hated this a better memory. See you next week. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Good morning. My name is Aaron. I know, it's stranger danger, but, I'm a friend.